So today we are going to be covering or looking at the last feature of our grid section. And it's pretty much just a summary of what we did here, but using a shorthand. So you can see that we have our grid column and our grid row. So we identify our starting and ending points for both axes. But there's actually a way that you can do this whole thing in one go. And usually when you're developing websites, you're going to want to do this. You don't want to go and do each of these properties individually for all of them. You're going to want to do it quick and fast for both axes. And that's how you get the maximum out of grid. So what we're going to be using is something called the grid area property. And just like before, pretty much what happens is this is a shorthand that summarizes these two in one property. So it is a little bit confusing to get your head around the starting and ending points, so I'm just going to go through it with you. So right now I have changed this part a little bit. I've kind of messed around with the column starts and ends so that you can differentiate between the values. So pretty much what the first value you're going to input, just like here, is going to be your row starting point. So you're going to go ahead and input 2 in this case because we want to match this exactly. And the next, instead of your row end, is actually your column starting point. So then we're going to put 1. Now from here, this is where a lot of people get mixed up and confused. Pretty much what's happening is just how like with margin, you go top right, bottom left, or with any other kind of property that deals with those kind of multiple value scenarios, what's going to happen here is you have the row column start, and then you have the row column end. So just keep that in mind and everything will work out for you. So all you have to do is go ahead and say 2, 1, and now we're going to put our row end. Remember, we have row start, row end, and then column end. So here we're going to put span 2. Now remember, this can be a span value or an end value. It doesn't actually matter. So you can put whatever you want here. And then of course the column ending value, which in this case is span 3. So now what we're going to do is go ahead and just comment these values out for now and see if anything has changed. And you can see, of course, it hasn't. Since we've pretty much summarized this into our shorthand, we don't actually have a use for these anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of them. So now that you know how to do it, let's talk about some of the benefits of this. Now, when you're creating a grid, you're creating a huge practical system, most likely. You're going to be organizing pages into headers and sidebars and all sorts of things, and you don't want to go and input those two for each one. It gets a little bit confusing after a while. So it's much easier if you just have one property that can summarize both the column and the row in one clean swoop, and then you can apply them to all of your different pieces. So your sidebar would go and start and end here, then your header would go here, and you get the idea. So that's pretty much it for grids and grid area. There's a lot to cover, and of course practice makes perfect with these kinds of things, but the more you use it, the more you will understand how to sort of work with it and play around with some of the tricks that really get grid to work properly. Now, these tricks can't really be taught because, of course, they're personal to the user, the developer, and what kind of work they're doing. So there's always shortcuts and all sorts of little tricks you can use with these properties to really lay out your website related to your special field of development or work. All right, let's move on.